In honor of Cam Newton talking about game managers, I want to talk about Trevor and Lamar because somebody was called a game manager and it pissed a lot of people off. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good in the hood, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. Let me put my name up here. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder, we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure when you get there, you subscribe, hit the like button, and also hit that bell so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. And then if you're riding around in your car or sitting at work when you're supposed to be working and not listening to a podcast, but you are anyway, just make sure wherever you do that every single day, you check in so you don't miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. I got to let you know that LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'd like to say hello to the everydayers and shout you guys out for joining us every single day here on Locked On Jaguars. And if you're not an everydayer, you can be. Just come back and join us every single day. Fun topics today. Fun stuff today. Thank you, Cam Newton. Salute to Cam Newton. By the way, I met his dad, hung out with his dad at a charity event that I emceed years ago. And Cecil was a really, 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 really nice guy. And just to clear it up, I'm a big Cam Newton fan. So I'm going to talk about Trevor Lawrence and Lamar Jackson in lieu of Sunday night's game here in Jacksonville. So it's going to be Trevor versus Lamar in the first segment. Segment 2, we're going to get into game manager or franchise quarterback. Shout out to Richard Sherman for bringing that up also. And then final words on Sunday night, talking about weather being bad and all of this stuff and how we're supposed to navigate that and move on Sunday night. So we'll just see how that goes. But that's the show today, and I'm so glad. I apologize real quick. Somebody was trying to tell me something about game management. But no, Trevor Lawrence versus Lamar Jackson. Here's another time on national television that Trevor Lawrence is going up against a real good, I think Lamar Jackson is great, a great quarterback. And he has a chance to show the nation that he's pretty special too, which I happen to think that Trevor Lawrence is. And it's not, in my opinion, that Trevor Lawrence isn't driven by statistics. It's driven by what I've seen from his talent and the ability that he has to make throws that I don't think 7 or 8 dudes in this league, maybe any more than that, can make. So I understand this thing about, instead of saying franchise or all of that, what I'd like to say is, do you have a quarterback that has special effects? Trevor has some special effects. 1, he has legs. 2, he throws while he's on the run. 3, look no further than the throw he made against Baltimore last year. And it's not, I'm not cherry picking because he's done this, I want to say 15 or 20 times since he's been here. But since they're playing the Ravens, look no further than the throw he threw. I think it was to Marvin Jones or Zay Jones last year. It was somebody named Jones in the corner of the end zone that allowed the Jaguars to get in the position to win the game or to win the game. Those throws aren't throws that any and everybody can make. They just aren't. I'm talking about the touchdown that led to the 2-point conversion that actually tied the game, or I think the Jaguars took the lead at that point. Those throws are not easy. So guys can make those throws. But I'll tell you what, there's some other guys that make those throws too. Jameis Winston can make all of those throws, but he just makes some that you're not supposed to. So in this back and forth a little bit, we're sitting here talking about a dynamic guy who was MVP in Lamar Jackson, who folks sat and said a couple of years ago, well, he doesn't win playoff games. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And anybody with a brain knows that Lamar has special effects and Lamar can also throw the ball. Shout out to Kevin Oestreicher. We talked about it a little bit on our crossover this week where we discussed Lamar Jackson and Greg Roman. And maybe Roman was trying to, I told a little Michael Jackson story, where maybe Roman was trying to tailor make stuff too much to fit what he thought Lamar was. And Lamar was like, he resisted it. Like, nah, man, we need to do other stuff. I can, basically now that you see Todd Monken up in Baltimore, you see him doing other stuff. The ultimate responsibility of all of this stuff falls on whoever is in charge of the franchise, whoever's scheming up stuff, right? It is the coach's responsibility to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of his player and put that player in a position to do what he does best and not force him to do the things that he doesn't do. The other team's going to spend more time doing that. Now, when you get to Trevor, there aren't a lot of things that he doesn't do well, right? I guess the only thing that you would say that he does well, that he doesn't do well, according to people around the league, at least a lot of the Bosas and the Arden Keys of the world, is get to those progressions. And my explanation for whether or not he goes through his progressions, which I don't necessarily think that that's true, and I don't have any evidence that that's true, but one of my things that I said was, well, if they block for him a little bit longer and keep pressure from coming in the interior three, maybe he doesn't get knocked off of his square. Or maybe if he had a taller receiver, if he had a 6'3" wide receiver to go along with a tight end that was also tall, maybe it'll make it a lot easier on him. So sometimes we might be blaming a guy for who he is and what he is when it's not really his fault. Are Doug Peterson and Press Taylor designing offense for him to get the ball out quickly just because they know that they can't block for a long period of time? Is this the same stuff that Doug Peterson was calling when Carson Wentz, before he got hurt, should have been an MVP? Is this the stuff that Doug Peterson called when he had Nick Foles quarterback in the Super Bowl and throwing for damn near 400 yards? Was it all of this quick stuff, or did he have something there that he didn't have here? And that was a really, really good offensive line with two potential first ballot Hall of Famers on it. So when Cam Newton starts mentioning the teammates of Brock Purdy, that's what leads me to wonder why so many people don't get the negative connotation when it comes to what a game manager is. I'll just tell you this. Anytime you hear the word game manager, 90% of the time before you hear that phrase come out of somebody's mouth, you're going to hear one or two words. You're going to hear only or just. So whenever you say only or just, that places a limitation on this guy, right? So if Cam Newton says when he started naming all of the special effect quarterbacks or the guys that are difference makers, he named Aaron Rodgers. So when you name Aaron Rodgers, that gives us a chance to go back 20 years, right? In the last 20 years, there have probably been 3 Super Bowls won by guys that Cam Newton thinks is a difference maker. 2 by Mahomes and 1 by Aaron Rodgers. Correct? Correct. Now, if you call Tom Brady a franchise or a difference maker, you'd be correct. But if you said he had difference-making talent, he ain't no runner. He got a good arm. He ain't got a great arm. He's a real good arm, right? There are other guys that threw the ball harder and further and probably had more arm talent. So is pocket presence a part of game management, or is that a part of being a special guy? I just get confused. And all I can tell you is I got people in my mentions hitting me up, man, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm not disputing what Cam Newton says, because I think Cam Newton is right about a lot of stuff. And I also think that if he was to tell a whole bunch of people to kiss his you-know-what by saying that his career wasn't better than this guy or he had only one season, he'd be well within his right to do it, because I think anybody who says that is absolutely crazy. We'll talk about it. Let's get to it. I don't think Trevor is a game manager. I think Lamar Jackson has proven himself to be a franchise quarterback, and I think Trevor Lawrence is on his way to proving himself that he's going. You ain't going to go from being a game manager to a franchise quarterback just because some of your results change. You either are that guy or you're not. It just hasn't manifested itself yet. I use this example all the time. Go look at an orange tree when there's no oranges on it and tell me it's not an orange tree. It is. It's just not its season. It hasn't manifested itself yet. And sometimes I think we rush things too much, and that's why we get to the point where we are now. I'm going to talk about game manager over a franchise quarterback, and I'm going to put my spill on it. For what it's worth, I don't disagree with Cam Newton one bit. I just take issue with certain aspects of these conversations. And guess what? I'm going to flat out tell you exactly what those issues are. We'll do it here in segment number 2 on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, I got to let you know about LinkedIn Talent Solutions, man. LinkedIn is where it's at, especially if you have a small business, man, and you want to get the right people in front of you to decide who your best candidates and who your best employees should be. Well, LinkedIn is it. It isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals and which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So, easy. In fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Now, LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire, so let them help you. Now, terms and conditions apply. It's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job. All right, running it down here. Segment 2, Locked On Jaguars. Where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Talking about franchise quarterbacks, I had to because it's all over the place here on social media. So, when you make statements, this is what communication is. You got to say something and people have to be able to receive it, right? Some people don't have the acumen. Some people need 2 or 3 explanations, and I get that. I know that more than anyone, especially on social. But if you're the one making an unprovoked statement about something, it's incumbent on you to understand the context, right? So when Cam Newton says, and I don't have the clip, and but I will say what he said was they were talking about MVP candidates. He named off a few guys. He said, "Yeah, man, but those guys are game managers." Let me tell you where I think it came from. I think Cam Newton gets slighted a lot. I think Cam Newton is someone who did win an MVP, who also has special effects, who was a franchise quarterback, who at times he admitted he didn't manage the game correctly, which means it's a skill, because if it was just something that just happened by you being out there, he wouldn't say that he failed to do it sometimes, right? I get it. When you're in a unique fraternity of being a quarterback who was an MVP and someone asks you about other MVPs, just like if you won a Heisman and they ask you about who Deion Sanders a couple of years ago said that the Hall of Fame was now becoming the Hall of Very Good because they're letting anybody in, and it's whatever. But still, I'm still saying that people that have been given something or placed in a rare fraternity, they have the right to question whether or not other people deserve it or make their comments on somebody else. But we cannot ignore this. And I know this better than anybody, because when Richard Sherman said that when he talked about Trevor Lawrence earlier this year, he said that Hall of Fame Richard Sherman, by the way, because since everybody was wondering how can certain people question guys that played the game, well, people questioned Richard Sherman a whole bunch when he said that Trevor Lawrence was not a franchise quarterback, that he was a game manager, and that the Jaguars weren't winning because of him. They were just winning with him or something like that, right? And everybody went off and got angry. I pushed back on it some, because I have seen Trevor Lawrence make these throws that only the guys who are called franchise quarterbacks make, especially the guys who make those throws and don't make a ton of mistakes. I'm not talking about somebody who threw 30 interceptions who can actually make those throws. A lot of guys who can make those throws who don't do a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's the whole bunch of other stuff that I think also counts as a skill, right? So getting back to what Cam Newton said, there's no question that what he said and what his rebuttal was to it, if you haven't seen it, go check out his podcast, that he's factually correct. And that he's just as qualified, probably more qualified than anyone to talk about a quarterback, especially someone who's in the MVP race. No doubt about it. Are there quarterbacks that are guys who can, the guys who push you and the guys who pull you? The guys who pull you have to be special people. Are there guys like that? Yes. Do they all win? No, not all the time. They don't. And there have been negative connotations about those guys. And the one negative connotation you always heard about, and I'll just say it, black quarterbacks or guys who are mobile. They said it about Tebow to a certain extent too. It was like, can he do the little things and can he manage the game? It was read defenses, and then it's like, can you manage the game? So those guys with those special effects have always had to deal with that. So the game manager has somehow become in our consciousness the enemy of a guy who is a special effects guy, who is a guy who does things differently. And that's why I say I put the onus on the coach and the coordinators, the people who design the offense, to know how to win when you have something that you're not used to, right? That is above the X's and O's. Too many times we blame the players for those shortcomings when it shouldn't be. But here's the thing that I wanted to convey. You cannot deny that there's a negative connotation on the phrase game manager. Cam knew that when he said it. Now, I don't know if he thought people was going to understand it and then didn't think that it was going to blow up that way and he would have to give a rebuttal that was superb, by the way. Or I don't know if he said it unprovoked to elicit conversation. I think Richard Sherman said it because Richard Sherman felt that way. Okay. And maybe what Richard Sherman was saying was, we haven't quite seen the production match the hype. But he just totally just put him in a category, put him in a box. It's like you meet a pretty girl and she puts you in the friendship box. You ain't getting out of it, right? So for me, whether he knew, whether he was baiting people, or whether he thought or just assumed that folks would understand what he was saying and give him the benefit of the doubt, because what he said was factually correct, it was just said in a way that it really captures everything that I just said about how guys with special effects that don't manage games the way people are used to are viewed. And then how guys who, like, for instance, if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl, people are saying, can he be the MVP? Has he thrown for 300 yards in one game this year? Has he? And then to mention the fact that he has this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Okay, well, when he missed 3 games, they had this guy, this guy, and this guy, and they lost 3 in a row. They got beat by Philly by 30 last year, I believe, in the playoff game because they didn't have that guy. And then said, when we get our guy, we're going to come back to Philly and beat you. And they went back and they won by almost 30. So my point is he means something to them. And if it wasn't a skill, if game management wasn't a skill, don't you think they'd have the dude out there that they gave up 3 first-round draft picks for, but they traded him to Dallas? And that guy's arguably more talented. So, yeah, you got to know that there's a negative connotation when you say that. Now, you don't have to care. It doesn't have to affect what you say or your opinion. You don't have to care. But come on, when you say it and you said it, you knew, or you should have known, because you're the one with an unprovoked comment. It is incumbent of you, the initial communicator, to make sure that your point is understood. He definitely made sure his point was understood in this rebuttal. But my only point about the whole thing was, now, come on, we can't have this both ways, right? There's always going to be different talent levels of players. There's going to be things that guys do that other guys don't, and they can't do. I will say this. If you take Cam Newton, and this gets to the crux of it, you put Cam Newton, the Cam Newton that we knew, you put him on that San Francisco 49ers team, they probably don't lose a game. So look, there you go. Made everybody feel good about how I feel about Cam Newton. I got something else to make you feel good. That is, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Tell you something about the weather. They said, you know, what Ray Gibson said in the movie Life, if a man starts talking about the weather, grab your wallet. Well, I'm going to talk about the weather. I'm going to talk about the weather and other implications that will come from this game that we have this weekend on Sunday night. It's a night game too. It gets a little chilly around here. It gets a little chilly. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. It gets a little chilly when it rains and then at nighttime. So it's Florida, but it may not quite seem like Florida. It may seem like you're somewhere else. But I'll tell you all about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, time to get serious, man. Let you know that our sponsor for today is BetterHelp. If you are someone in need of therapy, you can get it online. That's right. It's available to you. If you're going through life and you lost the ability to kind of get yourself back on track, well, guess what? BetterHelp will help you do that, man. BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com can help you with the tools you need to get yourself back on track and to deal with life. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easy on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. I've benefited from therapy, and you might be able to. Just visit BetterHelp.com/locked on today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked on. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. Just a quick recap talking about Trevor versus Lamar, how big that game is going to be Sunday night. And you get to watch them. You see what a franchise quarterback, a proven franchise quarterback looks like, and you get a chance to see what one who wants to be a franchise quarterback looks like. Or you can just go pop the tape in from the game last year, and you can see Trevor Lawrence just didn't go anywhere. He was, to me, he was the best player on that field that day. But people who don't want to realize that he is or isn't, or he isn't as bad as they think or as good as we all think, they don't want to acknowledge that. So my final word is, on Sunday, you get a chance to prove it. Whether the Jags win or lose does not matter. I think Trevor Lawrence will have a chance and an opportunity for him to change some narratives about what people may or may not feel about him as a quarterback. If he does it, it's going to have to be in some wet, cold, nasty weather here in Jacksonville, Florida. Baltimore's used to it, right? The Jaguars have played at home in some beautiful weather and some hot sun and great field conditions, and haven't won very much here at home this year. So why not? Why not? Why not have a sloppy field? And they're wearing teal too. Shout out to one of my buddies, and I know he's listening. He hates when they wear teal. He says it makes them look soft. So we'll see if any of that comes into fruition. But it's going to be a big game, man. I hope the crowd is just as enthusiastic as they were when the Bengals came in. I said at the start of the year that the AFC North, the fact that we had to play that entire division would be very, very difficult. And then about 5-6 weeks ago, I said, well, it might not be that difficult at all. We might run through the division. Well, if the Jaguars don't beat Baltimore, they can't be 500 against the AFC North. And that's kind of telling that, you kind of need to beat those teams. This game with Baltimore is similar, in my opinion, to the 49ers game, because they are all about putting it on the floor. And if you don't know what that term means, it just means like we're going to line it up and we're going to see what's happening. They're physical. They get after it. They are strong where the Jaguars are not very strong. Their defensive line, their front seven, the way that they're really, really good on the back end of their defense. In fact, statistically, their defense might be the second best defense we've ever seen from the Baltimore Ravens, according to Locked On Ravens. So the Jaguars are going to have to be on the A game. They're going to have to be on the A game Sunday night. The fans are going to have to be on the A game in conditions that aren't really conducive to the A game from the fans being what it's supposed to be. But it's a chance for the Jaguars to make people forget about the last 2 weeks and the last two games that they should have won, that they played backup quarterbacks. They ain't playing no backup quarterback this time. And if you're a Jaguar fan, do you care if the kid from Cincinnati that came in here, you care that he didn't look like a journeyman, or he didn't look like a game manager? He managed the hell out of it. He was 32 out of 37 for over 300 some odd yards and a couple of touchdowns. And then Joe Flacco turned back into Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco, who happened to be a Super Bowl MVP and a Super Bowl champion. Was he a game manager? I just think sometimes all of these things get blown out of proportion, and it's all because either people don't listen very well, or the person that's conveying their point doesn't make the point the first time, and therefore we have all of these conversations that could have ended 3 days ago. And I think it may be a combination of both. I think it may be a combination of both. So it's just ironic to me that these conversations happen on a game featuring someone who used to be, well, maybe he's not a franchise quarterback, even though he won. The naysayers, the guys that want football to be played in a traditional way, like Y.A. Tittle or Johnny Unitas is back there. They'll never like a guy like Lamar Jackson. And then they'll point to the fact that guys like that have traditionally not won Super Bowls. And football is the ultimate team game, and the ultimate thing is to win. They'll do that. And then on the flip side, there will be people that will criticize Trevor Lawrence for not being more like Lamar Jackson, right? And now Lamar has proven to everyone that if they needed proven to, I don't know who needed to be proved that he's a great player. Trevor has his shot. Trevor has a shot. The one thing about the light being on one person, if you're anywhere near the vicinity, you get some light too. So I'm looking forward to the game Sunday night. I did not pick the Jaguars to win this week. I said that they would play better. And there's a path to them being able to play better without ticking everybody off like the last couple of weeks, because this is a really, really good team. They barely lost those last two games. One went in overtime and one came down to the last drive of the game. But it still hurt because they were expected to win. I think a close loss this time, even though I don't believe in moral victories, there's a way that the Jaguars can come out not winning this game, but you can still feel better about their prospects moving forward. And maybe they can win the last three games, go into the playoffs with an 11-6 record, right? Or no, it'll be 10-7 if they lose this week. Go into the playoffs. Oh no, they're 8-5. They're 8-5 with 4 games left. So yeah, they lose. They go in with an 11-6 record if they do that, and order will be restored, and people will be optimistic that they're going to win at least one playoff game. And you win one, when you get in, you never know what's going to happen. You win one or win two, you never know. You could wind up being lucky with your game manager in the Super Bowl. I got to let you know, man, that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, man. That's going to do it. Enjoy the game. I'll have a post game immediately after the game, following the game. Depending on whether I go actually to the press box or not, I may, because of the weather and because I still can't run, I may watch it from the confines of the Wiggins residence and then be able to get that show to you while you're leaving the game in your car. You'll be able to hear it. So it'll be immediately anywhere between half hour or hour right after the end of the game. You guys make sure you travel safely, enjoy your weekend, and continue to take care of each other. Until next time here on Locked On Jaguars, I'm Tony Wiggins, and thank you for making us your everyday listen. It is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen.